Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to look at the next episode of Tex Talks Battletech, the Warhammer. Now, I love this mech. In Battletech, it's probably one of my favorite ones to use in MechWarrior 5, and goddamn, I want to go back into Harebrained Schemes version and play it there because it was just so much fun. I'm a little biased towards this mech because it does what I like. Giant honking lasers on a massive death machine of murder. Yeah, so I'm just going to jump right in and probably find out I've been using it wrong. That's been a constant in every video. Every video. Yeah. That said, I've been having fun, so let's do it. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let's get started. SL comment. HPG. Oh, HPG network aligned. Network status. Green. Go with green on this one. Stable. Handshake protocols. Oh, they're saying it. Comstar communications. Inquiry. Where is Randolph P. Checkers, Esquire? Searching. Isn't that a Texas character? I think it is, yeah. Randolph P. Checkers. Van Zant. Unclaimed wild space. Outer periphery. Warning. HPD travel interdiction in effect. Ref attached. Fiesta Pale incident. Warning, unauthorized broadcast. Hijacked attempt in progress. What the hell did they do with the Fiesta Pail? Never mind, I realized what a Fiesta Pail is halfway into saying that. Oh god, it probably went everywhere. What? Ooh. Dude, are those just random mechs in spacesuit floating up there or just random debris? Planet Van Zant. Status. Odd. Yep. I'm not sure which would be weirder, if that's a bear suit or an actual bear bidding, and there's a clown. Oh, yeah, odd is accurate. Also, there's like some kind of... I'm going monk, but from the south because of the hat and the robes. But a clown. Does Van Zandt have an entire army of clown? You know what? No, I'm not even going to say the words. There are things I don't want to know. No, just no. Old J Falcon refuse. Oh, it's the catapult that fell last time. Whoa. All wars are civil wars because all men are brothers. That's actually really nice. But it gives way too much credit to Amaris on this one. That wasn't a civil war. This was a fuck you ending. All cool mechs.
Good evening, class. And take your seats.
Star League
We got a
Museum?
hell of a topic this week, and something probably overdue in terms of subject matter.
Oh?
Today we will discuss a battle mech that is not the biggest of them all, or the best, or the most technologically advanced, or even the most dangerous. In fact, this may be the most average Joe of battle mechs.
Grand Ole Opry and shooting range. They've got a high-tech bunker, but with the front of a southern plantation home. There's a reason I don't do accents. Tonight, Prof. Tech's lecture on Warhammer. Tomorrow, Pogo Shotgun Tourney. I'm gonna be honest, if there's not a clip at the end of this of a shotgun Pogo exhibition, I'll be very disappointed. Now, are they shooting shotguns from a modified Pogo? Or are they Pogo sticks with shotguns? I don't know which one's more terrifying. Although if you modified a Pogo stick to basically be a shotgun, that actually might work. If you really know what the hell you're doing. Funnier if you don't.
Today's story isn't about the greatest of them all, but what is frequently overlooked in inner-sphere warfighting.
Oh?
That which is good enough. For this lesson is an exploration of that constant gamble in weapons development, wagering everything on perfect potential outcomes versus accepting good enough for now and leaving things well enough alone.
The last time he said something was just good, I think it was the Blackjack that started off horrible, but then it got to be just really good. Not great, just good. I guess this one starts at, well, leaving well enough alone. Oh, this is going to be, it's fine, followed by, and here's how they fucked it up, isn't it? Kind of looking forward to that, actually.
At the center of this thesis we will discuss one of the timeless classics of intersphere warfighting, the mech designed to be good enough for most things.
Yeah.
The champion of the everyman, and not to mention one of my very favorites at 70 tons of righteous fury.
I see. Tex is a man of culture. I mean, I knew that already, but I can say it now because we also agree on the Warhammer being really damn nice.
The mighty Warhammer.
Such cool art. Also, I'm pretty sure that's a catapult behind it, but I could be very mistaken. And I want to see that's a Centurion. It's really hard to see with just this little bit of it. Oh, is that the clan version with the two sides? Preamble.
This story, and the many stories which orbit it, will tell the tale of not only the rise of the battle mech, but the timelessness of near-perfect design.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this image too. Oh, dude, look at this. This is definitely some of the newer art because the older art didn't have this level of detail. But also they have extra layers of rockets and there's the flashlight. Yeah, sure, why not? The torso's thicker, but the arms, oh, God. There's, minigun. There's a lot of lasers in the torso. Oh, giant F-off cannons. Dude, I love this art. It's super gritty. You can just see everything crumbling around it. Oh, God, you actually have the debris falling as it goes.
The end result is a machine, a simple machine that has become in many professional circles, and in my humble opinion, one of the ultimate weapons platforms under 7 million C-bills.
Whoa.
And pardon the delays. My extracurricular activities and penchant for thoroughness have made this a more difficult endeavor than I had ever considered.
But did I just pause in the middle of a black... Oh, I did. There's a small laser, a machine gun, and a medium laser. Medium, small, and... Oh. Ammunition housing, main torso. There's a main torso access point in the... Oh, cool. God, look at this. This is... Passive optical sensor, high output... Oh, it is actually a searchlight. Alternate light mode emitters? Emergency? Ferroglass viewport? Oh, it's all the other little things in here. Oh, okay. Dude. Wait, there's an ejection seat? I guess it makes sense, considering some people actually do eject. I'm ride and die. Mostly because I fuck it up frequently. Yeah, apparently you can actually eject. I'm like, nah. It's also why I over-armor my mechs whenever I play.
In my research, I found much that influenced the development.
Is that a mech or Battletech train? I can't tell if it's a ship or a train. Kind of looks like it's on rails, though, down here. Maybe it's just the image. Also, that's a lot of Warhammers.
Of the legendary Warhammer. And in turn, I plan on visiting most of these interesting places in the timeline to give you a fuller understanding as to
comprehensive.
How and
what's
why
with the
Warhammer is what it is today.
And it's Davion. Part 1. Beware the Baron. A cautionary tale in military procurement. I'm pretty sure this is the land ship we just saw. Unless this is actually a spaceship, I just couldn't tell. Yeah, I think it was in the upper top section over in this area. Here's the Baron.
To start, I will need to discuss the great mistakes in arms procurement that began the Warhammer in earnest. However, to tell this lesson fully
this is early on.
And correctly frame it, we need to wind back a bit and briefly revisit the age of the warship.
Dude, we're actually going back. So that was a warship then. I wasn't entirely sure because they look very similar unless you see the bottom half, but sorry, I love warships in Battletech. They're some of the coolest things ever. The things they were used for were always uniformly horrible, but goddamn, there is something really cool about just giant fuck-off battleships, man. It's one of the things I do kind of wish Battletech had. Giant fucking warships. More of them, because I know, Ghost or Clan Ghost Bear has one, and it's so freaking cool. But I want more. I want unique designs, and there's a few, and they're huge, and apparently I've been told they're never used because they're giant wastes of money and capital. But I don't care because they're cool.
Itself, the end result of a rampant arms race. The age of the warship began with humanity's push toward the stars. At least, that's what the history books say. I feel it really began with McKenna turning his guns on Terra in 2315 to remind humanity that Maybe they should get their collective shit together before going on to make the rest of the galaxy more interesting.
Oh.
By Tintavel, there were so many warships in service that they had become the cornerstone of all military planning and thus were the prime cause and solution to most geopolitical issues.
Which is probably going to happen in reality
the
someday.
so-called Age of War, which I'm sure you're now well familiar
Mackie.
with, and the subsequent
And then, of
age
course,
of the Battletech
Marauder.
have already been covered in the scope of this lecture series as they directly relate to the development and production of first and second generation battle mechs. However, I'm going to briefly go over the transition between the Age of War and the Age of the Battle Mech in very broad strokes to highlight a problem in weapons procurement directly related to my thesis. A thesis that suggests, regardless of era, weapons procurement is governed mostly by people who can't, or never will, see a battlefield of their own volition.
Ah, so that's what he meant by weapons procurement. It's someone who just sees the number, and the number they see is, we're not doing enough. So they make a choice, but the people on the ground are like, no, fuck, it's fine, stop tinkering with it. This isn't in any way, shape, or form realistic. If you've ever had a boss that decides they need to micromanage, but also never look at what they're micromanaging, you're very lucky, and I'm very, very jealous. But yeah, this is what Tex is talking about, and I get it already. The procurement issue is, I see the numbers, I don't see the reality. I'm going to work off the numbers. Why do I have the feeling they're going to order a bunch of things that can't ever be done and create a backlog? Maybe, I don't know.
All trying to spend as much of other people's money as is humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
For those unaware or late to this lecture series, I'm a cynic. And in very broad strokes, the Age of War was the last great pre-mech arms race.
See, here's the thing. I know he's saying he's a cynic, and yes, it is the last great pre-mech war arms race. But, gonna be honest here, Tex is a goddamn optimist. Every time he talks about it, he has more hope in humanity and just generally being a nice guy. I don't see him as a cynic, even with how he portrays himself in character here. As the guy from Van Zandt, he comes across as kind of optimistic and hopeful in a very jaded way. Jaded more than cynic. I know usually jaded is cynical, but he seems like he's seen a lot of shit. But also, he kind of thinks it won't go horrible. I'm sitting over here going like, I don't always think it's horrible. I just think it will be eventually. He's a lot less cynical than he seems to give himself credit for.
It was a savage era. It was populated by the occasional crime against humanity measured in the gigaton. Each great house, with enormous strategic fleets and their attendant building schemes being governed mostly by the N-squared law,
That's a very big bomb.
each held truly terrifying firepower. But they had forgotten a few key lessons about strategic deterrence, and so things
You don't want to actually use
often
them?
escalated. As it turns out, nuclear weapons are one of those things you can't just undo, for those of you curious. Tintavel gave us the Aries conventions.
I mean, technically you can undo them. It just is really hard, and it takes a really long time. Because you actually can reclaim land that's been tainted and irradiated. You just have to remove the irradiated topsoil and go down until you reach something that isn't irradiated, and hope to God it hasn't seeped into the water supply, which would spread way faster. It is entirely possible. The Fukushima reactor meltdown proved that was a possibility because they're actually reclaiming land around the area. That said, it's really expensive, and if you're doing it to an entire goddamn planet, you don't have the resources to do it. That said, technically possible, just really impractical.
The Aries conventions prevented strategic weapons from being the first-round pick in any war, and so militaries that have been built around warship-centric warfighting found themselves ground down, with no tools left and no major force multiplier to make any significant headway in their vast, now neutered arsenals. From a
Just going to throw it out there because I'm not sure I mentioned this before. That's one of the things I'm always surprised about, that they haven't ever made a reveal that there's a faction out there that just has a bunch of regular troops, a lot of the regular tanks they bought on surplus, and they bought the old warships that other people were just selling off because they weren't mechs anymore, and just kept them mothballed because they were building their own fleet outside in the periphery for the eventual fuck you. I'm surprised that wasn't where they went. Instead they went to clans, which makes perfect sense because it's in-universe mech fighting. But I'm honestly surprised they didn't randomly go, hey, giant ship combat. Because, honestly, then you could just outfit the mechs with space jumpers. Would that work? No, it's stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it'd be cool. A completely different series. That's basically Gundam at that point. But I'm honestly surprised no one collected them to try and make a point of, okay, we're going to fuck all y'all up. Here's my guns and all the other guns you guys started throwing away. Just throw it out there.
Desperate need to price to ensure.
Really? Just the little lens flare, right as the hegemony determined. Lens flare. To pay any price. That's so.
Achieve this notion, the hegemony determined that they would pay any price.
Yeah. As soon as he transitions from they determined, wink, to pay any price because money. Oh dear. It's such a little edit, but it actually is perfectly timed just to make it kind of funny.
To ensure absolute primacy of First Nation among nations. And thus, the military-industrial complex made sure to collect that money. And though I have gone over this doctrine of carefully protecting industrial knowledge earlier in this series and its direct effects on the balance of power, I draw your attention to the subject at this juncture once more to posit a humble opinion.
What?
Such a stranglehold on weapons R&D didn't stall mech development and innovation as the Directors General of the Terran Hegemony had intended. Instead, it drove one of the most competitive arms races the Inner Sphere has ever known.
He was trying to stall development? The fuck?
Development and innovation. A stranglehold on weapons R&D didn't stall mech development and innovation as the
Oh, honestly, I never actually got that because I figured he just wanted to keep the genie in the bottle as long as he could. Oh, that's literally what stalling would be. It almost seems like he knew he was going to fail and said, fuck it, keep it while we can and abuse the advantage. But I guess it kind of makes sense. The framing just seemed different for some reason.
Directors General of the Terran Hegemony had intended. Instead, it drove one of the most competitive arms races the Inner Sphere has ever known.
That didn't involve
Students
nukes.
of sociology might know this effect as keeping up with the Joneses, or a classic case
Cold
of
War?
envy between peer nations now constrained to limited means by which to maintain a strategic edge. And, in a tale as old as humanity, the great powers of the Inner Sphere saw what they didn't have, and with greed and avarice pounding through their veins, they rolled up their sleeves and said, fuck it. If they won't sell them to us,
We'll make
we'll make our own. Or in the case of Canopus, with blackjack and hook.
Of course, blackjack and hookers. Is that a clown? Is that a clown with a gun? That is a clown with a gun looking at some kind of weird alien species. What is with all the clowns in this video? No, don't answer that. Please don't answer that.
With blackjack and hookers. And they did. And so, mechs became the yardstick of military might as quickly as they could be produced.
How does
Having
Canopus
mechs
factor into
was
that
a
then?
must. And soon enough,
Other than just like
having
they didn't
better
seem to
ones,
actually compete?
more specialized ones, was absolutely critical in the development of mech warfare doctrines. War planners wanted anti-aircraft platforms, fire support platforms, heavily modifiable frontline combat platforms.
Just do everything.
And of course, all the joy and comfort that those production jobs bring to a constituency meant that it was an easy procurement program to justify for most military procurement authorities. The age of the battle mech brought near constant fighting.
Wait. Huh. A Lyran in something less than a Atlas. It just feels weird to see that portrayed in art. It's like it's 90 tons too little. And also, I'm discounting its own weight because it's commando. I think those things are death traps.
Authorities. The age of the battle mech brought near constant fighting, but hell, they resulted in a tremendous economic boom for those with the ability to reap the benefits
And
of
less
equally
destroyed worlds
pervasive
entirely.
large-scale weapons investment programs. War, sometimes, is just what business needs. It's hard to justify an infrastructure program, but if you relabel it as an emergency security measure for public safety, well, that's an easier sale to make. Doubly so when it provides a generation of your constituents with fat paychecks.
I hate how everything he just said is perfectly accurate to reality because it's very annoying how right that is and it's still true. Seriously, I just got finished playing Metal Gear Rising. I'm just sitting here going, How many different media focus on the same problem? It's like it's a massive issue in reality or something. Crazy how it literally is. I just, Sorry, I just literally just finished MGR. And, it's like, it worked out cool in Battletech, but at the same time, it's kind of dystopian when you think about it.
That's not to say mechs were a hard sell for the actual warfighting armies of the Inner Sphere at all. Warships were a necessary step to expand holdings and patrol held territory in an age before the HPG network. However, the naval arms race had stagnated conflict into whoever could apply maximal force the fastest before your opponent could respond. Unless it went nuclear, that is. And that's a hell of a genie to put back in the bottle. As it turns out, glass sand isn't worth much in the strategic sense. There's no real KD ratio in war that matters if all you inherit is dirt.
Yep.
With warships being easier to make and repair than, say, entire habitable planets, there was a bit of a problem here. Warships also had the problem, as stated, of being less useful after Tintaville. Warships are great if your problems are strategic, but strategic weapons have limited application in anything other than a full-blown war. And while major invasions are kept at bay with the implied threat of a strategic response, border wars and proxy wars fill that gap neatly.
So as long as... Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Where I was always wondering for a time, because people keep saying, the warships just became expensive. And I'm thinking, yeah, but also that's only as long as people listen to the Aries convention, which we know happened. We also know the only time they ever broke it is when it technically wasn't broken because the Turians, however the hell you say their name, the Bullhorn people, weren't technically part of it, so it didn't count. Also, would you really trust Lao? Really? Because the answer is always no, but just, it's always surprising. There's just a lot, just leave a few around just in case, float them up, make sure no one kishes into them, either kishing as pirating and or stealing and or just crashing.
And in those conflicts, it's difficult to justify the use of full-blown theater-scale nuclear ordnance and what may not even matter long-term, let alone...
Yeah, that came later in the Succession Wars.
And I promise this all ties in. So why bring up warships again? Well, I need to talk about warships as one of the biggest investments.
USS, pretty much anytime Tex talks about a warship. I'm pretty sure they've even used this before because he's done this exact image so many times, and it's still a really cool one.
Of manpower, resources, and research in the Inner Sphere to talk about the next subject.
Yeah?
Warships, planet-killing ordnance, and any other flavor of grand investment for state defense, to include battle mechs by the age of the battle mech, are enormous gambles. And while mechs have long since replaced warships as the weapon of choice for interstellar slap fights, warships and their attendant building programs serve as a useful test, which can demonstrate easily how bad a problem can be when you blindly gamble everything on being the best. That being said, you're about to learn more about the bad side of military procurement programs than you ever wanted to know. And this lesson is key, as it shapes all that follows. Let me tell you a bedtime story.
Strategic fuckery and advanced study. AWS 8Q. Maintenance hacks. Inner Sphere guide to Triple F Burger. I'm pretty sure that's a reference to a swear word, but with how things are going, it might also just be a form of meat.
One about greed, audacity, and incompetence.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
While the name Baron is known to us, and is certainly a noble title going far back into antiquity as records allow us to see, the warship class named the Baron was anything but noble.
Was unaware of that.
The Baron was a destroyer-class vessel initially designed, bought, and built for the Terran hegemony.
But
it was supposed to be a next-generation, incredibly expensive, groundbreaking destroyer hull design conceived and built during the height of the massive naval building programs at the end of the Age of War. It should have been a shining example of the hegemony's craft, its scientists, and their vast bodies of knowledge.
I just realized the background music is sweeping strings and a very enthusiastic, uplifting beat that sounds like we've got this, but in string format. Like here, if you could hear that for a bit, listen to that.
The age of war. It should have been a shining example of the hegemony's craft.
Yep, see. So he's talking about what should have been. It's very optimistic, and the music in the background is matching it. It's a little audio cues like that are so freaking cool. And I always love it how Tex and everyone at I think Mike is the editor. I'm sure if it's him who did this or someone else who might have done sound design. Actually listening, who's doing what here? I should probably check this up in advance, but edited on its own excellence. Yeah. I can't see it at the end. Oh, spacers, yeah, of course. Just there's so many cool things like that. It's so well edited, and the sound design is amazing.
Its scientists and their vast bodies of knowledge. Should have been, but wasn't. By 2515, the keel was laid and actual construction had begun after a lengthy design, bidding, contracting, and governmental committee approval process.
I love this art.
Because building a bunch of something very expensive requires a lot of fucking money.
Ah. Oh, I see what's happening here. This is literally... It's expensive. It's not going to do anything because no one's going to fuck around with it anymore. And they're actually going to trust that to be the case, which turned out to be accurate for a while. Oh. I wonder if the procurement is going to this thing. And also this would be what I thought was a train at first. They really do look like trains, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, even the sloped hull. Weird. Never noticed that prior.
And that, of course, attracts only the finest interests from various parties, all wanting a slice of the pie.
Yeah.
The objective of the class was to provide a new generation of destroyer to outmuscle the other states of the inner sphere.
But
this was an absolute requirement, as the hegemony was small, industrial at its limit, and had to build qualitatively better forces in order to have any chance to
there weren't many of these maybe
as
as
the
cost
ever-increasing
issues, isn't
industrial
there?
bases of their peer states. This was ambitious, as historically the terrestrial navies of ancient Terra, with substantial quantitative challenges of manpower or equipment, also attempted to overcome these deficiencies by building qualitatively better examples of equipment for the task at hand. In short, if you couldn't beat their numbers, you made certain your shit was top tier. At least in theory. But
I don't like
national
theory.
defense
Theory sounds like it
isn't
broke.
that sort of game. Most nations accept the idea that to have peace, they must prepare for war. This requires massive investments in the future that may or may not turn out to be completely useless when the time comes to test if your preparations are sufficient or were even wise in the first place. And so industrial nations must dance a line in military procurement. They operate one military on a daily basis, and then they buy and build another for the next war, or the one after it. It is a constant competition of brains, sweat, and blood to build a better killing machine before your neighbor does.
Also, just want to ask right now we have this right in the middle of the view. I know this fighter, and I've seen this one a bunch. If anyone knows what type of fighter this is, let me know, because I just really like finding out this. And every time I was asked before, people have actually gone in the comments and told me, so I'm figuring, you know what? Fuck it. If someone knows what this is and why they have all the missiles right behind the cockpit, right next to the engines, odd choice. I'm assuming it's mostly just because it looks cool. Because if it was underslung, you wouldn't see it at all. Neat. Still, if anyone knows, I really like to know, just because I like seeing all these different designs, figure out what they are.
This balance of procurement must measure the tremendous gulf between day-to-day military operations as practice in fact, and how
Did they
planning
under
and
or over
procurement
procure
now will influence and shape
Probably
the
under.
fortunes in any future conflict. The very threat of war, for those who've seen it firsthand, is enough to make such massive future investments part of every nation or aspirational power's military budget.
Oh.
Whether this is just madness, paranoia, sound preparation, or just good old-fashioned graft. Whatever you call this.
Almost
just
always
know,
graft.
To the military-industrial complex, it's fucking payday.
Yep.
At 1.628 billion C-bills per hull, the Baron was an enormous investment for
1.28 billion. That's 5 decent clan mechs. Actually, never mind. That suddenly sounds cheap. That's 12 half standard decent, not actually probably more than 12 regular inner sphere mechs that are actually really good. It's probably like closer to 20 or 30 if you go cheap. Seriously, man.
The already massively overextended hegemony. The Navy said it was critical for defense, critical for future generations of shipbuilding, and likely the age-old adage of, if we don't build it, the enemy will.
Yeah,
and so the hegemony approved the design, and they started to build the goddamn thing. I'm not talking build 2 and see how they work, and then operate them, and then with lessons learned, build the rest. I'm saying full immediate production of a complex yet completely untested hull that had never been successfully integrated with.
Oh. I thought it was going to be like, hey, we got the money. We're going to do the Marauder thing, but with a giant motherfucking ship design, which is cool. But then Tech said untested hull design. No, you don't do that. You test the fuck out of something. If you're not absolutely certain it's going to survive, you don't make an entire... Oh, God, this is a giant... Oh, yeah, it's a giant money sink. And this is probably why they stopped doing warships, at least in the Terran hegemony. Which is disappointing, because I was always hoping there'd be like a little side story. It's like, we got this one hidden away. No one would ever find it. Because Comstar definitely hid it. And then they lost the keys to it and couldn't figure out how to start it again. And I would love that story, because giant fucking warship hidden somewhere. So like, that's so freaking cool, man. I'm a geek for warships as much as I am for mechs. But no, it sounds like this is literally what kills it, because there's going to be a design flaw, and they never tested it because somebody rushed it. Probably a lot of somebody's.
Any of its components. On paper, it was an innovative weapon.
Actually, I think this is the first time Tex has done one of these breakdowns for an actual ship instead of just a mech. 480k tons. Oh, 80k tons. Okay, that's the difference. I thought, wait, 480 is 480,000. Okay. 256 improved ferro aluminum. Oh, they're going heavy on this thing. Max thrust 1.5 G. Wow. That means it can actually simulate gravity just by moving. Neat. Crew 270 plus 30 passengers? I guess it doesn't look that huge. Fuel 6,500 tons. Heat sinks 1,100. And this is pre-doubles. 29 NLC 35s. I don't even know what an NLC is. A Navy autocannon, Navy lasers, 29, and white shark launchers. I don't even know what that is. That looks cool. What's the problem?
Weapon system being built on faith without even a scale model prototype.
Seriously?
Take note, this is called foreshadowing. At 545 meters in length and armored with the latest, and not to mention the then most supremely expensive in armor.
Yes, I know Tex had to point out that it was foreshadowing, but dear God, I thought it was better. It was like an untested hull. And he just keeps hammering it in, because also he's turning, how to put this? He's mentioned it multiple times, and then he lampshaded it. So it takes it from just a little foreshadowing, which is the first one, to the second one, where it's like, okay, I'm making sure you know, to lampshading it, turning it from foreshadowing it into a joke, in the sense that it is so blatantly obvious to anyone who knows how bad anything he just did, basically what I went off on a little tangent about, it becomes kind of a joke, because it's so obvious. It doesn't even have to be foreshadowing. It's flat out telling you what's going to happen. That's not foreshadowing. That's dramatic tension. Oddly enough, it's doing the Romeo and Juliet thing, which is dramatic tension. And you're like, okay, you know what's about to happen. The people doing it don't. And just, thing is, everything he just said was known then. And you know, if they ever got around to building a story about it, it would be about how somebody fucked up. And it's like, money.
Improved ferro aluminum armor plate, itself a precursor to ferrocarbide armor used today. The Baron was an imposing warship. At least notionally.
But
as designed, it had 29 naval-grade lasers, 8 naval autocannons, and a White Shark missile tube array capable of laying out reminders of great power theory in 50 kiloton doses.
Oh,
it had a
KF
drive, It had all the best technologies, which we now consider largely standard in warship design for destroyer-class vessels. It was bold, fast, and innovative. It was a potential game changer.
Wait, standard design warships? Oh, I thought this would be what killed them all together. This is early enough on, mechs weren't around yet, so it just killed this one specific type, isn't it?
Changer. It could and should have heralded in a new era.
But
a new standard of ships, and the hegemony would have had all of them. But as great as it was on paper, reality is another fucking thing altogether. Equipped with the latest and greatest as dictated by the needs of the government, which the naval staff had demanded and ordered built as soon as possible, certain mistakes were overlooked or chalked up to the favorite phrase in the military affairs world when shit doesn't work right because nobody actually tested it in an operational environment because they were too busy buying shares and doing cocaine about it.
So basically, they went full Russian on it, telling you it's good and then not actually making it good. Oh, this hurts so much, but it makes so much sense.
The phrase is teething troubles. And friends, let me tell you, if a weapon can be said to have teething troubles, the Baron was missing half a set and ordering corn on the cob for dinner. Soon after the keel was laid, workers at the yard found virtually nothing to be as it should. With master shipbuilding plans in hand, naval architects found that, with systems either poorly conceived, designed, or produced and then shipped to the yard for assembly without second thought, the lack of any significant components integration testing resulted in a cursed project from the get-go.
They didn't even test if the things worked. You know what? No, I'm not even surprised. This is... Okay. I'm good. I just... Untested hull. Sure, okay. Rushing things through. Okay. They didn't even see if the freaking thing they were building en masse worked in the first place. They didn't even do a freaking on-off test is what I'm expecting at this point. If it doesn't explode, immediately explode, and ignite its own ammo, I am going to be surprised at this point. It just keeps getting worse. I thought the foreshadowing was a little on the nose. No, it just... if anything, Tex was downplaying it.
At first, most of the issues surrounded the revolutionary engines and its attached power plant.
Is that
a warship whose whole point of existence is rapid power projection? Having a shitty power plant is kind of a big deal. Doubly so when the warship is intended to be a fast response vessel capable of sustaining high thrust for long periods of time.
Ooh.
Engine faults alone caused such delays in building the goddamn things that they weren't even put into full-time service until many years after their intended introduction date. These were laid up during construction for years while engineers tried to figure out what the designers, military planners, and admirals had been smoking. By the time they were actually built,
I think we all know what they're smoking. Tex covered it earlier. Rolled up $50 bills. They managed to find historically accurate ones, the ones that are in museums and probably worth way more than you can realistically afford, and they smoked those.
The designers and officers who had wanted them had either moved on, retired, or been promoted.
Yeah, because it was such a great idea.
Your abject failure somebody else's problem. When it's a matter of debt or money or time, that's one thing. When it's a cornerstone of your national defense, it's something else altogether.
This actually pains me. Everything about this pains me because it's such obvious fuckery. And if you just had better quality controls, or any, it would be fine. But this is literally the machine running rampant, or specifically the war machine, industrial war complex, whatever you want to call it. Ugh. It's literally the worst excesses of we don't care, fuck it, money.
As it turns out, building something new, revolutionary, and game-changing at any cost is actually quite hard. It's harder still to try to build, prototype, improve, and modify the design for mass construction while simultaneously manufacturing the damn thing.
I know, it's not even saying anything differently. It hurts. This actually hurts to do. It's so obviously fucked up. Oh, God. How does this lead to something even remotely good, let alone the Warhammer? I'm actually kind of afraid how he's going to dovetail these two together.
But to try to fix design, while arguing with a distant naval design committee who thinks they did no wrong, procurement teams who are
because they're not the ones seeing what's on the ground, so they don't actually believe anything is wrong. See, everything fits on paper? Yeah, but people fucked around.
Only interested about the dollar amount, and naval officers who seem more interested in buying, building, and parading rather than operating a military in its intended capacity. Well, that makes things pretty fucking difficult all around.
Problems disappear when the guy at the top likes it not working.
Try to stop production,
as long as it's not his fault.
Faults by closing the yard in question until everything is correct. The budget office throws more money at the problem, and thus the circus continues. As it turns out, operating a good, competent military isn't just a skill for generals. It actually requires talent across a wide variety of disciplines. Most of all, I find it crippling that many generals forget that true leadership requires the wisdom to listen to people who are actually smarter than you, and the foresight to plan for darker days.
I noticed that little Sharky patch down there. Really, Tex? When you specifically call out a general for being, you gotta do all these things and say every way they're fucking it up. You just put a random Warhammer Worlds Republic general in there? Oh, that's actually perfect. I can't even tell if this is edited in or not. I would assume it might be because the fine line around here is much thinner than everything else. But it has the gradation that might not make it an edit. I don't know, but I kind of like it either way.
But what the hell do I know about leadership? I'm just a mercenary. At any rate,
I mean, you're used to bad leadership, so
anyone should endeavor to do when trying to build a national defense program. That is to say, dream up an impossible product and then build it without even seeing if you can actually make the damn thing.
You know, I was only half expecting it to actually blow up, and based on how they're framing this right now, we're about to see a boom, aren't we?
All the while hoping
the Demon Core all over again
before anyone notices. Then again, the military affairs crowd typically making decisions in these cases have struggles with concepts like object permanence, let alone the difficult considerations.
Because with all that cocaine rushing through, of course nothing seems permanent.
Outside of a classroom, weapons procurement is a gamble, and sometimes you lose your fucking shoes, or in this case, you end up with the Baron. But its story is not done yet.
It gets worse?
I've only talked about how badly it was built.
Oh no.
So, some years later, the now quasi-operational Baron class was brought into the Star League Defense Forces.
Nope. I have my limit on how much bullshit I can deal with. This is my line. I love mechs. I love giant spaceships. And this has been a giant case of everything that could go wrong is. But unlike the Blackjack, when we got to that one, it got better. This one, it just keeps getting worse. I'm like, this is such a cool looking ship. And it has so many cool things in every step of the way. It's just getting fucked up and everyone's ignoring it because money. It makes sense. I hate how much sense it makes. And it hurts because it seems like it should be so cool. I'm getting upset over logistical issues in a fictional warship. Yeah, Tex is doing a really damn good job of showing exactly why this entire setting is awesome. That said, I'm going to go just do something nice, like some tea, maybe a nice cool drink, hug my wife, and not think about how I'm getting annoyed over fictional incompetence. It's weird, but at the same time, fuck it, I'm a geek. This is my thing. I am getting more and more terrified how he's going to make this fit in with the Warhammer. Is it like what? Just a bunch of random extra supplies they didn't use because it was all fucked up, or they tried to scrap these things and wanted to put the naval cannons on something? That would be really awesome. Also, I don't think anything could actually handle a naval cannon on a terrestrial level. Unless they did like a massive, obscenely large land ship size tank. Because at that point, it's more gun than tank and it just has armor. Which actually sounds really cool now that I think about it. Land ship with a giant fuck-off cannon that can melt most things. Yeah, that actually sounds really neat. All the same, though, if you haven't already, links below, original video, hit them up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and whatever I missed or might have misunderstood, let me know. And yeah, I know one of the things I did was I misestimated how many clan mechs would take to replace one of these things. It's still a lot, but it's a lot more than I assumed. It's like 4 or 5. No. I need to add a 0 there, which is still a lot, but significantly probably better deal. Just go for the mechs. Yes, so many cool mechs. But yeah, details. All the same. Link below. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.